Hello, I'm Dr. Norman Wilson. A mind wrestling match has been going on in my head for quite a while. Hopefully, what follows will have a rational coherence. One of the fundamental questions that is always asked in any philosophical discussion is, how do we know who we are? And bringing that to a personal level, we ask, who am I? How did it go? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all? In today's world, the question more likely should be, mirror, mirror on the wall, who am I? So who is this I of me anyway? This body I call mine and soul and self, and with this, I as well as you are faced with an age-old question and a dilemma. The true I am needs no support, no grounding. It is the ground itself, the grounding of all groundings, all proof. For consciousness being must first exist. For awareness of being, consciousness of self must exist. The I am must be recognizable. Therefore, you need to recognize the I, not to bury it. At first glance, that seems easy. We human beings live and act and think and consciously express publicly or expressed in personal silence. We cry out, I am body and soul and self, sensation, action, and thinking. I am alive. But when we do that, we live a contradiction. Yes. We live a contradiction. And how is that so? It's a contradiction because I can only be I, not the one who feels him or herself to be all of his or herself, but the one who knows, thinks, and ultimately brings utterance into all assertions. I cannot point to anything outside of myself, spirit or body or soul, and still say I am that. I can only be the one who says this. Thus I express and live a contradiction. All that I hold this way to be my being are things. I look in a mirror, look at the image I see and say, I am that, and that is what most of us try to do. And that story does not end there. Go ahead, look in a mirror, see yourself. That doesn't tell you who you are. And therein lies the problem. You are trying to identify yourself with a mirrored image. You are not the image in the mirror, but the one who sees it, the one who knows him or herself in that mirror. You, the I of you, yourself, in the contradiction, but not recognize that it is the one who places, that speaks and thinks and dreams. You may ask, don't we carry this mirror with us? My answer is yes, always. The mirror, four-cornered as late Sylvia Plath describes it, or oval or round, is always present. I wonder now if the fundamental question should be, what is the mirror? It is the mirror we always carry with us, the inner I. We call it the self. And in that mirror is the central I we perceive. It is the personal individual self. We human beings are body and self and are recognized by their inner I as such. The secret is to live with this without struggle. And if we can do that, we can live with the agonizing contradictions involved in who we are. The problem, the struggle, and the agony comes about with our attempt to conceptualize and express this. The paradox is born and manifests itself in what is experienced as the external search for the ultimate truth. What then is the ultimate truth? And whose truth is it? Each of us thinks we seek the truth, and that's nonsense. Seeking the truth is not the problem. The problem is one of recognition. Can you or anyone else recognize the truth? And when they see it, For example, have you recognized the truth of your own being? Can you handle the ultimate truth? Here now, at least in part, it is. You are not and cannot be a body, just a body. Unfortunately for some, the realization that they, in all truth, cannot be a body, anything else other than that, causes disassociation. To have a split mind, as philosopher Alan Watts called it, C.S. Lewis called it bent ones. How can this be so? It is because it is not the body that thinks or speaks. I am. Philosopher René Descartes says, I think, therefore I exist. The existentialist response is, I exist, therefore I am. And that provides a clue. In this case, the expression of the personal pronoun reveals itself. It is the spirit of the body, the self of the body, that is the initiator of all action. It is the self, the I, that thinks, identity. It is not in the mirror image, but it is that which sees it. Remember this above all else. It is that which sees it. Your I is the center. It cannot be demonstrated. It is invisible. It cannot be seen. It will not be seen. It can never be seen. Why? Because it is itself seeing, processing, and knowing. The notion that human beings perceive only phenomena for which they have concepts or ideas that apply unconditionally to the observation of consciousness is untenable. Such a notion denies the workings of the self. We accept these concepts and thoughts as being real. We have them, they exist. I experience them, you experience them, at least for a nanosecond. Therefore, there is no need for a sensation of reality. After all, sensation only suggests in any given sensation you or I may have may be illusionary, as it would be with any sentient being. What happens is this. It becomes obvious then that sensed reality does not appear real because its conceptual nature. We need a feeling of evidence. That is, its concretization. Okay? Isn't that our destiny, to concretize everything? Even down to a nanosecond, and then we miss that which is. The goal is to attain a complete conceptualization, to get the synoptic view. When this happens, our consciousness will recognize its truth, and reality will be born. Percept and concept need to be unified if there is to be wholeness. Percept and concept needs to be unified if there is to be a wholeness. For the many, they remain separate, and they struggle through their lives knowing something is lacking, but unable to determine what it is. They have what is called split minds. What I'm talking about here is a total synthesis, and I believe it is possible, at least for a few. No, not Einstein or Nietzsche or Goethe, not people like that. Actually, they were very close-minded. Einstein hung up on his unification principle, Nietzsche his Greek tragedy, and Goethe his narrowness of insight. Newton, for example, made no achievement after his Principia. Neither did Einstein after his famous equation. So who then, you may ask, makes this synthesis? The Buddha? Zarathustra? Mohammed? Christ? Maybe. Such a synthesis requires that one receive concept and percept simultaneously, and not as separate entities. Such a mind would never consider these two separates, but it would render both to be individually indivisible and inexorably bound with and to its object. And where does this leave the I am, the self? Remember the mirror? I is the I that has placed you in front of it. It was the initiator of the action. It could not be seen. Granted, there is a self-sensing, And with this self-sensing comes the development of subconscious. The ego is thusly reflected self-sensing, a self-sensing reflection of the I. Mind you, it is self-sensing, not self-aware, and that is the reason of our human discomfort, for our continual quest. Our perceptual world is metamorphosed, and we become convinced that our percepts exist. That is, that they are real, that the I of me in you is real. The only way for this I to live is to live in identity. It's the I that guides, moves, and initiates. As you become aware of your attentions, such a creative reality, a reality that lifts you up to the most intimate and individual activity of the I. When the I experience occurs and a perceptual attention, it is climatic, not unlike an orgasm. The total being is bathed in exquisite sensation, a rush that explodes upon the I, bringing it to a new level of consciousness. At that moment, deity in passe exists. It is the creation of the self. You yourself are the solution, the riddle of nature, because you have it within you, at least the potentiality. And that potentiality is deity posse, creation personified. I close now with a quote from the Upanishads. He who, dwelling in all things, yet is other than all things, whom all things do not know, whose body all things are, who controls all things within. He is your soul, the inner controller, the immortal. And I add, the I am. Thank you for listening.